we're going to just take a deep breath and just get started. Just any time now, Kevin?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay. Mike, I'm really glad you're giving us this opportunity. What we're going to do start off with is kind of getting the basics. Now, would you tell us your name, please?
Mike Devaney, I'm known as. I was known as Mick in Ireland for the simple reason that my grandfather was Mick, and he died before I was born. So they continued the Mick name. I was Mick till I left Ireland, and then I got called many things since then.
Do you have a
And
middle
that was
name?
mine. Martin,
Martin. That's your middle name, okay. What part of Ireland did you come from?
County Sligo.
Sligo. And what was the county? I mean the town and the parish.
I come from a parish of Easky, a place called Lenadoon Point.
And is that
That
country type of a setting?
Yeah, divides Killala Bay and Sligo Bay.
Oh. So you were very close to that. Where were you born?
There, right there.
In the house? At home?
Probably, yeah.
In the home, okay. What kind of a home was it?
Farmhouse.
A farmhouse,
Yeah.
okay. Thatched roof by any chance?
Part of it. It was a house that had been generation after generation. It was an old thatched house. They moved further and then they built a wing on slated roof. Typical what happened years ago.
Yeah, okay. And what was the date of your birth?
November the 3rd, 1931.
Okay. And do you have siblings?
No.
Brothers and sisters? None. Okay.
Oh, I have a brother, yes.
You do. And where is he now?
He's back in the home place.
He is. And what's his name?
John.
John. And he stayed in
Somebody had to stay to mind the...
Mind the farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Were obviously your parents or your grandparents were from the same area, this house.
Right, yeah.
How far back does it go?
Well, because of the location of Lenadoon is a headland or a point that divides like Killala Bay and Sligo Bay. The British Admiralty sends out a survey team once every 100 years to check for erosion and all that kind of stuff, to see have we lost anything to the sea in those years. So the last time he was out, he said, "Who's the present owner of Lenadoon?" to my brother. He said, "Devaney." And the guy says, Devaney the last time, Devaney the last time. As far as the book went back. And they only come once every 100 years.
And so how many 100 years back?
I don't know. We didn't. That's something I should go to the geology class for.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's been a long time.
A long time, yeah.
Back in your family, yeah. And your would have started with your great or something grandfather. Where did your grandmothers come from?
My grandma, I'll tell you a funny story about my grandmother. My grandmother was going to America. She was a young woman. And she had this going away party as usual, Irish wake or whatever they called it. They'd singing, dancing and crying. And my grandfather went over to join the fun or say goodbye to her. And he says to her, "Why are you going to America?" And she says, "What am I going to do here?" He says, "Well, you could marry me."
Oh, wow. And she stayed?
And she stayed and married him.
For heaven's sakes. What was your grandmother's name?
Gosh. I have a senior moment.
That's it. What was her first name?
Her last name was Duffy.
Duffy.
Duffy,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so her maiden name was Duffy. And so she was from that same area then?
Yeah, about half a mile down the road.
Where had your grandfather been all that time that he didn't notice her?
It was the last chance. Last call before America.
Right. And the night before, can you imagine? What was your mother's maiden name?
Cowley.
Cowley. And was she from the same area also?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, closer.
Closer.
Quarter of a mile.
And what was your father's name?
Patrick.
Patrick. Okay. And your mom, did she have any kind of a job outside of the house? Was she a working woman when she married your father?
No, I don't think so. She was very young. She married my father.
Okay.
And she had plenty of work in Lenadoon.
Well, I'm sure
that's
she
for
did.
sure. Yeah. There was no
picnics there.
no
huh?
commuting.
Yeah. Now you said you lived on a farm.
Yeah.
Is that yeah. Was it a big farm?
It was big for the area, but small for the days.
How big? How many acres?
About 75 acres.
That's pretty big. And what kind of farming did you do on that?
In my time, it was mixed farming, which meant cattle, cash crops of wheat, sugar beet and potatoes, seed potatoes.
And what was it all done for not export?
The potatoes were for export. The sugar beet was going to the sugar beet factory in Toom. And we didn't have milk production, and it was mostly for beef cattle.
Okay. Did you keep like cows and chickens for your own personal use at the house?
Yeah.
You did, so that you did your own milking and stuff like that. Yeah. If you were standing in the doorway of your home and looking out, what would you see?
You'd see miles and miles of the countryside of County Sligo. Miles.
Mountains?
As far up as the Ox Mountains.
Ox Mountains? And how far away would that be from your doorway if you were looking, if you could?
25 miles or so.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful, huh? So it hasn't been built up a lot in that area?
Well, the land was very flat, easy to see. You could just look over the horizon. On the other side was Mayo, across the bay, which was only 9 miles wide. If you could see it clearly, if you could see the houses clearly, and you could see people, you better get your coat and hat ready. It's going to rain.
Oh,
That was a sign of rain.
really?
If you could hardly see it, it was a great day.
If you could hardly see it. Now, why is that?
The haze was very hazy.
Yeah. And right in front of your door, would there have been a garden? Or, when you walked out the door, would there have been, what would have been right
We
there?
were at the end of the road, so it was more like a turnaround. It was all roadway, right front and back.
Of the house.
That was the end of the road.
Yeah.
That was it.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. What was the weather really like when you were living there in Ireland?
Some days was just beautiful, and other days would blow your hat off or blow the roof off the house.
Literally?
Unbelievable weather. And then on the west side, we had rocks, like cliffs, where the tide would come in and hit, and it would go 40 feet in the air. And your house would be covered with salt spray.
Wow. So you were that close to the water as
Yeah.
well. Must be a gorgeous place.
Well,
Yeah.
in a wild storm, you wish you were someplace else.
I imagine. Did you ever have the experience, the roof blowing off?
Oh yeah, not off the house, but off farm buildings.
Yeah. They tie them down up there, don't they? The roofs?
Well, nowadays, they had galvanized in those days, and they used to rust with the salt water, and then when the rust, the nails would give way, and there was nothing to hold it down. That's why that blew off.
Okay, I see. What kind of things did you do on a daily basis when you were living there?
Oh, God.
What would a day have been like?
A day on the farm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in the earliest of the days was when we bring the cows in for milking and feed the chickens and all that kind of routine. That's just from our school days.
Yeah.
But I started to work on the farm when I was 14 years of age, a full-fledged farmer. And a day was from sun up till sundown. That was one thing that was pretty tough about farming. Of course, the bad day you couldn't work, and the long winter nights meant it was a very short day for working. There wasn't much to do in winter time.
And what time did you go to school? What time would you be going off for your school day?
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock. And what was your school like? Where did you go to school?
About 2 mile. National school was 2 mile.
And who taught in the national schools? What kind of a smile?
Yeah, he happened to be my father's cousin, so we wasn't supposed to. He made sure I got a good hammering for whatever.
No special privileges. Huh?
No special privilege, just to make sure that he wasn't.
Yeah. How many kids would have been in that school in those days?
About 50.
50. And how many teachers?
There were 3 teachers, and
And How you just walk to school or bicycle?
Walk,
Walk to
yeah,
school.
or run.
Or run,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So there weren't uniforms then in those days.
No.
Kids didn't wear uniforms. It's just.
No uniform, no.
And you brought your lunch with you to school?
Yes.
Okay. I know some of the schools I've heard that the kids brought something to keep the fire burning in the school.
We did that too.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah.
Sod of turf.
A sod of turf a day. Yeah. And what was the school year from when to when?
You got me there. You know, we had here to have a spring break. We'd have a break for planting potatoes. We'd have a break for thinning beet. We'd have a break at harvest time. Of course, we get a summer vacation, but mostly it revolved around what was needed at the farm when help was needed.
Oh, makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you weren't going off to the continent for vacation, huh?
Vacation was, we didn't even have that word over there then.
That's right, holidays.
Holidays.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What did you do for fun when you were a child? What kind of things did you do? When you had time to play, what did you do?
I'm trying to think.
Games, marbles, anything like that?
Yeah, football.
Football.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Of course, when I quit school, it was dancing.
Dancing.
Yeah, that was the biggest.
When you got to be a teenager?
Yeah.
Been around for teen years. So about what age would you start going to dances?
16.
16. And what time did the dances start?
When all the work would be over, it'd be usually about 10 o'clock at night and go until 3 in the morning.
Yeah, wow. And where did you go to dance?
Well, Enniscrone was the most popular place. It was a seaside resort. It was about 8 miles. We had local dances too, but they weren't as good as going to Enniscrone or Easky.
Or Easky?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how did you get to those dances?
Bicycle.
Bicycle. And 10 o'clock at night in the summer, I guess it was still light.
Oh, yeah.
And 3 o'clock in the morning, was it starting to get light again?
We get light again, yeah.
Yeah. So you were going in the...
Yeah.
Yeah. You were in the darkness was when you were there, huh? And is that how you met the ladies? Had dates and things like that? Or
Yeah.
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 Okay. How'd you celebrate special occasions, like, say, Christmas?
Well, it was a family get together and feast of. Usually, we had a goose rather than a turkey in those days. I don't know what a goose tastes like anymore, but because it's.
Did you raise it yourselves?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You did for the holiday. And would Santa Claus come to call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never got to see him though.
No, never did. Did you have any special traditions around Christmas in your house?
The holly. My mother would always put holly out in the fields make sure the lambs came in safely.
Really?
Yeah.
In the field?
Mhm.
I've never heard anyone say that before. Was there any in your family? Was it just your mother, your father, and your brother and you, or was there
Yeah.
other members of the family that lived in the house with you?
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had always heard of the holly, but I always thought it was something you brought into the house.
Well, you did bring it into the house, but of course it was part of the Christmas tradition. I don't know, was it just my mother's idea?
Yeah, very interesting.
My mother had a lot of faith.
She did. Yeah. Yeah. As a child, you said you were involved in sports. What kind of sports did you play?
I didn't play a lot of sports when I was a child because maybe there's the reason I'm here. One of the things on the farm that bothered me was hay. The hay. I always had got hay fever. So I wasn't very good at sports because of that.
Oh, yeah, you'd have that. What did you do when it was time to put up the hay?
Well, it was all right while it was green until it started to get the dust come off it. Unless grass grew to be overripe, then that was a.
All the pollen then would come
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
When you were putting up the hay, was that kind of a special time of the year?
They're all special time. Hay was special because you had to make hay while the sun shines, as the saying goes. And if you didn't, you'd lose it. So you had to plan your hay on making sure that today, tomorrow, and the next day will be good at least. till you get it
And
partially saved.
how would you know what the weather was going to be? How would you be able to tell?
It's amazing. Farmers have a better weathermen than the professionals you have today. They could tell by the aching bones or whatever else. They could tell when it was going to be.
Generally speaking, they were right on, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because their whole livelihood depended on the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like a seaman has to know about the weather for his going out. His life depends on it. It's the same with a farmer, more or less. Not his life, but his livelihood.
Yeah. I have a cousin that says when the gullies come in, it's going to rain. He
Yeah.
watches the sea.
Hmm.
So
There's a lot of signs.
Yeah. What other kind of signs are there that there'll be good weather or bad weather?
A rainbow in the morning, the shepherd's warn, and a rainbow at night is the sailor's delight. That's one of the signs that you would have. And of course, look out at the sea and you see those white caps. It's amazing that, and you see the foam coming in to the shore. That means there's a storm way out, and it's coming this way too.
Yeah. Now, when the haying was done, was it the whole family got in there and did it? Did relatives come, or was it just the family itself?
Just family mostly.
Mostly the family. Yeah, a lot of work then, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said now you were involved in dancing. And who taught you how to dance?
Oh, mostly self-taught. But when I went to night school afterwards, where there was step dancing being taught as long as the Gaelic language.
That's an interesting thing. Now, did you speak Gaelic at home?
No.
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 Nothing? No words at all? No, it just wasn't you.
Didn't speak much of anything. You're supposed to be seen, not heard.
And did you ever get involved in drama?
No. I did once or twice, yes.
Played in
With that, yeah.
with the school or
With the school, yeah.
school? Yeah. And how about music?
No, didn't get involved with music.
You must have had a party piece of some sort.
There's a lot of good musicians around, but there wasn't in my family.
Your family had not a recitation or anything?
No.
No? Okay. And you said your mother was very religious. Was the church a very important part of your growing up when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you ever have the Stations of the Cross at the house?
No, we had stations,
The
which is
stations,
having
rather,
a
sorry.
mass.
Yeah.
That was twice a year in the village, in the maybe 9 or 10 houses. The share one here, and next fall it would be at some other buddy's house, and to go around on rotation.
And your house was always one of those ones?
One of those houses, yeah.
And what was that like when you were getting prepared for stations?
Oh, you had to put your best foot forward and paint and clean up. Make sure that it was looking its best for the occasion.
Was the stations after the service, was that followed by some sort of a meal or anything?
Yes, it was.
And who prepared that?
My mother and some of the neighbours.
Okay. So was that like a day-long event?
Well, the best part of the day was gone when it was over, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And who selected who was going to have the stations in there?
It went on a rotation basis. If it was at our house, it would be back in, say, 7 or 8 times around. It'd be back to you again.
Yeah. Okay. And what other ways was the church? Was your family involved with the church? What other kind? Were you an altar boy?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. My father was a collector. They had a different way for collecting, and they go door to door to collect 3 times a year.
So there was no at Mass. There was no collection taken.
There was a collection at Mass, but not now. They have the collection at Mass like we have here, but not in my day.
Wow. So
Probably they might have it in the cathedral up in Ballinair or someplace, but not down in